A colorful urban art form to some, an ugly and costly problem to most of us in Milwaukee. Graffiti can create fear and have a negative impact on the health of a neighborhood. Left alone, it may seem the vandals have won. City officials and residents say that's not acceptable, and they're fighting back.
It becomes a real personal issue, and I have constituents calling me repeatedly that are getting graffitied that want to know what they have done to anybody to deserve this violation.
The answer is they've done nothing to deserve it. It's done by those who have no respect for property or the law. A gang marking turf, or more and more a tagger leaving a tag or a signature simply for public or peer recognition. Prompt cleanup plays a major role in the reduction of graffiti in Milwaukee. The city is assisting in as many ways as possible. That can involve technical assistance, paint, even help in removal. And those who need the help welcome it.
Oh yeah, I'm pretty happy. They come, they offer me cookies and all kind of stuff, a soda, and they tell me how happy they are. They don't have to see that around. I just myself told them to call the hotline so we can prevent to have it back again in the neighborhood.
You think you are making a difference with what you're doing out here?
Oh, definitely. It's making a difference, and every day more and more.
It's tough when vandals return, often within hours, but the work goes on. Those convicted of graffiti crimes are often required to pick up a paintbrush and remove the paint as part of their sentence. The damage and expense is something they hadn't considered before.
No, it never came to mind. Would never think about that.
Why not?
I guess it really didn't, I don't know. Guess it just never did come to mind how much it would cost to take it off and the time that it takes to take it off and that.
Some buildings have provided what are called permission walls, but allowing graffiti also encourages it. This Southside business found that the painters went far beyond the bottom half of the wall they were offered. The business would now reportedly like to eliminate the permission wall, but the graffiti keeps coming back. A law regulating the sale of spray paint and wide-tip markers was among the steps taken by the Common Council to tackle the problem. Sale of those items to those under 18 and their possession by juveniles is a criminal offense. The city also set up a task force to sort out ways of fighting graffiti. Alderwoman Suzanne Breyer and Alderman James Witt-Kowiak represent the council. At its last meeting, the group talked about another proposal to fine property owners who failed to clean up graffiti after receiving a warning. It would be a last resort.
Normally, from the beginning of the time that we get our first complaint until we determine that it's a non-cooperative property owner, it might take 4 to 6 months before we exhaust voluntary efforts and before we would make a referral to BI. So I guess what this is really targeted at are the hardcore non-cooperative property owners.
There were much testimony that an ordinance which allowed us to go out there and write tickets if we saw graffiti on a property would be unfair to the citizens who'd already been the victim of the vandal who put the graffiti there. And so we wanted to give every possible a chance to those property owners to comply before we had to hit them over the head with the fines in municipal court. So it was intentionally designed to be lengthy and as voluntary as possible.
Many say the courts aren't tough enough on those who break our graffiti laws. Judges say they need more options, since threats of fines, community service, or loss of driving privileges often mean little to juvenile lawbreakers. The state legislature, responding to requests of city officials, has passed a law giving judges authority to require juvenile offenders to perform community service and holds parents responsible for financial restitution. Officials are also trying to educate young people, teaching them respect for property. But if education doesn't do the job, they must also know there are consequences for their actions.
Especially with my education background, I feel if you educate people and get through to them, then there are less problems as they get older. I feel we are having less appreciation for the law now and for being responsible. Therefore, we have to legislate more, unfortunately.
Task force members say the education process also applies to parents who have to be aware of what their children are doing.
We're trying the education process. Before they even get into graffiti, we want to tell them that this is a crime, it's not right, and what in the world makes you think you can do this on our property? Where along the way did we lose this? But once you do it, you need to know that the entire community is going to come down on you. And until then, right now we get so many parents who don't turn a blind eye to it. Oh, it's not my baby, not my baby. Well, ma'am, and yes, sir, it is your baby.
Graffiti is a huge problem for the county transit system, which has a reward program for graffiti vandalism. In addition to removing marker and spray paint graffiti on its buses and bus shelters, the transit system often has to totally replace windows which are damaged by use of a sharp object in what's called etching.
The cost to us of doing this is somewhere between $200,000 and $300,000 a year. The reason why it's so expensive is we don't wait for it to get really bad and then clean it up. We try to clean it up as we see it because we don't want to put buses out with this kind of graffiti on it for our regular passengers. Now, we really have very few problems that occur on the bus, but graffiti is an outward sign of disrespect toward the property. And again, buses are the property of the people who are marking them up.
The greatest percentage of graffiti removal continues to be done by individuals and community groups. And city officials say it's essential that that continues if we are to be successful.
The point is, if a group of people gets together and this is part of their agenda and they're serious about it, you can't expect 100% success because some of it's going to come back. But if it's your mission, if you're persistent on it, you can get rid of it. And if you get everybody in the city that's affected by that thinking this same way, I mean, we'll beat the problem.
After all the things we've done to help curb graffiti, I just don't want it to get out of hand, so I'm very actively involved. I've even been known to sit with a cell phone in alleys at night because I feel that I need to make my presence known, and the police can't sit in every alley. They're far too busy doing other things. I want people to continue to be vigilant in their neighborhoods. If you're strong, if you have a strong group, if you know who belongs in your neighborhood, things can be much more successful, including catching the perpetrators of this type of dastardly deed.
Graffiti is not the most serious crime facing our community, but it is a serious crime, and those working to abolish it say graffiti will not be tolerated. Just north of downtown, between 6th and 9th Streets, you'll find the Hillside Terrace public housing development. 20 acres of land, nearly 600 units of public housing. Residents and the city say it's time for change, that it's become an island, and it's time Hillside becomes like other neighborhoods in the city. A $44 million housing and urban development grant is being used to do that. It includes separation of the 40-year-old public housing development into 12 new micro neighborhoods.
I can see changes coming, and there's, there can be hope back into the community, where at one time I could see, no hope, but now there is hope.
19 Hillside buildings, 119 units, will be demolished in the next 3 years. Removal of those buildings will provide for construction of more through roadways to improve police, fire, and garbage services. There will be more green space. It'll reduce the population density that has led to an excessive amount of concrete throughout the development. The first new micro neighborhood shows signs of what's to come, more distinctive exteriors, more landscaping. And the residents of Hillside have played a major role in the rehabilitation effort. from the amount and kinds of landscaping and streetlights on the outside to the color of carpets on the inside.
They really were the instrumental group in getting this project funded. Their consultation, they're saying, yes, let's keep on doing this, makes sense, it makes sense, we live here, we want to see this improved, and that's really what made our program very successful and ultimately funded.
40 families displaced by the changes will move to new single-family homes built on scattered sites near Hillside, where the city is making other economic investments. Another 39 of the 119 displaced families will move to rehabilitated homes. The remaining third will be issued rental certificates to allow them to move to neighborhoods of their choice. Many of the buildings to be demolished are already vacant, and as landlord, the city hopes the changes will increase occupancy.
And the fact of the matter was that even though people were on waiting lists, they prefer to stay on that waiting list rather than move to Hillside. So we knew that we need to have a new marketing approach, a more attractive units, more attractive setting, so that we could draw in families to live back in Hillside.
Creating a better life at Hillside requires social and economic changes as well as physical. So some of the grant money is being spent on child care and job training. 50 families will have a cap on their rent, so they won't be penalized as they work to better themselves.
So families are assured that if I go to work, if my children go to work, if I do something to improve myself, that I will not be penalized for that. And that's also a guarantee that we have. We're working with the welfare department to identify individuals that are presently involved in employment and training programs that are actually working, and we want to see if these units are attractive enough for them to come in. Because we realize that we need to have role models here so that children can see people that go to work every day. That's really what happens in most neighborhoods in Milwaukee, and it's no reason it shouldn't happen here at Hillside.
Construction workers on the project are working with 20 young people who are in a youth apprenticeship program. All are public housing residents. Some are from Hillside.
It's a dual mission that we are able to fulfill. One is a community service, something of the legacy that we leave behind. It's kind of like the old CCC, and this is how we like to craft in their minds what is it, the tangible nature of what you're doing. And second, then use the project to teach some skills, and then work on the assurance that there's going to be that transference after you leave the Corps, be it to enter an apprenticeable trade, the Voc-Tech system, or regular employment.
Regular employment as an outreach worker at the Hillside Health Clinic was a benefit of the redevelopment for Sherry Reed Daniels. Like others who live here, she says the changes make the future look much brighter.
Oh, I see a lot of beauty here. Where there was a lot of concrete and different things at one time, we would see a lot of green space, and for once all the concrete will be gone. I see streets running through here at one time where there were barricades. I see a lot of the residents becoming self-sufficient. Some of the jobs with the revitalization, I see a lot of the residents being employed or, learning some type of, being in some type of apprenticeship program or educational program, something. I see a lot of good things.
You will see neighbors asking neighbors about, why did your kid not go to school today? Block club watch programs. You will see police officers that are already living on Hillside. You'll see more of them. You will see the kind of behavior, the kinds of attitudes that really prevails in all neighborhoods in the city of Milwaukee.
Hillside is a place with a history, hailed as a model of urban public housing when built 40 years ago. Some well-known people, including outgoing school superintendent Howard Fuller and TV star Oprah Winfrey, reportedly spent time here as youngsters. Now, while chaos exists in public housing in many other large cities, Milwaukee is ready to make Hillside a model community again. Of Milwaukee's 220 bridges, 19 are mechanical, able to be raised over the city's three main riverways, the Milwaukee, the Menominee, and the Kinnickinnick. Many are on an angle, the result of a bridge war between city founders Juneau, Kilbourne, and Walker. They intentionally misalign the streets on their sides of the rivers. Werner Tram, a bridge operator for many years, now supervisor of operations, says they've always been an important part of our history.
The first bridges were swing bridges, wooden bridges, or floating platform bridges. Most of the time, the horses would have to run at a full gallop to get across before the bridge would actually sink with some of the loads.
Around the turn of the century, cities were ordered to build sturdier, more functional bridges. The Ember Lane Bridge in the Menominee Valley is the oldest movable bridge in the city, built in 1904. Several blocks to the west, you can see the highest movable bridge in Milwaukee. The 16th Street Viaduct sits 35 feet above water level. There are two types of movable bridges over our rivers. This type is called a bascule, a French word which translates as seesaw or teeter-totter. This other view from the river and the Iroquois excursion boat shows how it opens in the middle, raised with electrically operated gears. The size of a boat passing through a bascule bridge is limited by the width of the boat, not the height of the bridge. The second type is the hydraulic bridge. Its center deck lifted straight up, elevator style. Cheaper to build, not big enough for all boats. But where they've been installed, access was already limited by the height of the two freeway segments which cross the river. 7 of the river bridges are staffed during the months they are open, only 4 for 24 hours a day. One is remotely controlled, the others open by roving operators.
Well, we have a joke where we always say that it has its ups and downs. A lot of times it's just waiting around for something to happen. Other times you're running around and you don't have enough time to hardly keep up to the customers because they all want to have an opening at the same time.
When a bridge is opened and traffic backs up, several things can happen, depending on the patience of those directly involved in this form of urban gridlock.
Some of them like to get out of their car and observe the boats. It's something that's kind of like a tourist attraction. Others, you get a lot of horns and maybe a shaking fist or two and some deleted language.
Oh, the cars, they really enjoy telling you stories about your family. They give you other names than what you were. They tell you your mother's heritage and everything. They are sometimes can be very vulgar.
Bridge operators understand the impatience, but according to the law, the bridge is the obstruction to the boater, who has less control and the right-of-way.
Federal waterways have the right-of-way. The bridge is actually an obstruction, and we're charged with getting obstruction out of the way of the river traffic.
While bridges can cause problems for drivers and boaters, they occasionally have some unique problems of their own, especially the older bascule bridges like State Street, built in 1924.
In a situation like this bridge, the steel is getting very tired, exhausted, and it's expanding at a faster rate on hot days like today. It's very hard to open and close a bridge like this because they expand. Sometimes you have to get the fire trucks over here to wash them down, cool them down, and then you'll first get it to seat.
To make the bridges and river more user-friendly, the city offers a colorful guide detailing instructions for bridge openings. It's a busy time of year for our river bridges. The up and down process is one that's repeated over 18,000 times each season. This could be a vector. In general, it's defined as a carrier, an animal or pest that can carry and spread disease. And while not every roving canine is a serious threat, their fleas and litter can be a problem. The capture of stray animals, just one of many potential job assignments for the Milwaukee Vector and Nuisance Control Division.
Well, the main thing you have to be careful of naturally is the disposition, the getting bit. You try to look at the safety of the animal, try to keep him out of trying to run in the street so traffic, won't come by and hit him. And then also, taking into account you have to protect yourself.
Vector officers rely on a sturdy catch pole and an oversized net for nastier dogs and elusive cats. They've also come in handy for the unusual, which have included snakes, chickens, even a goat and an alligator. Milwaukee once had 10 units like this, but the city has made great strides in reducing the stray animal problem.
We've been so successful in knocking down dog packs. At one time, we would see 7, 8, 9 dogs running at large. We don't see that any longer. So we've been able to reduce our staff down to 3 animal control trucks. We still have some problems with strays, but again, it's nothing like it used to be.
Vector control inspectors investigate complaints about a variety of problems, primarily outside of buildings. Another area of involvement and progress is that of exterior rodent control. If a rat problem is verified, an extermination order is issued. The property owner can do the job with advice from the division, hire a pest control company, or Vector Control will do it, putting the cost on the property owner's tax bill. Rodents depend to a great degree on humans for food. An overflowing garbage can provide a fine breeding ground for pests. Milwaukee's garbage cart program is a big reason why the city has made headway in the rat control program, but we have to use them correctly.
The man-made food source is, in my opinion, 95% of the cause of the urban rat problem. It's not the harborage, it's not the soil. The whole earth is soil that could be burrowed into, but they'll burrow into it only near a food source.
We're one of the first cities in the country, actually the first city in the country, to come up with a federal grant back in the mid-1960s for rodent control. This allowed us to experiment and to come up with different types of baits and poisons and different methodologies on controlling rats, and this has been quite successful. So today we are in really good shape when it comes to rats. We still have rats, but nothing like a lot of other cities.
Complaints about rubbish and garbage on private property are also investigated by Vector Control. When cleanup orders are issued, the owner or occupant has 7 days to do the work. If nothing is done, a citation is issued and a private contractor will clean up the property. Again, the cost is added to the property tax bill.
The public may come through here rummaging around to try to find something that they want to keep. They might cut themselves and things. They might have all kinds of hazards in trying to salvage something. In a few days' time, this pile could be scattered throughout the whole neighborhood.
This Health Department division also investigates nuisance vehicles. Generally, an abandoned or junk vehicle can be condemned and removed when it is not secured and is inoperable. Vehicles parked illegally on private unpaved surfaces can't be towed, but tickets can be issued if orders to remove them are not obeyed.
Well, one problem is they're just taking up a lot of good space that could be used by people driving regular cars for a regular purpose, and then they also wouldn't be the unsightliness of it and the hazard of children getting into them, getting hurt on them, getting cut on them, starting them on fire.
Wild animals like skunks and raccoons are generally caught with baited traps. Vector control officers won't try to trap every animal, but in serious cases, such as this home where a family of raccoons has damaged the chimney and shingles and left piles of droppings on the roof, they are truly a nuisance and the city will assist. Animal issues create a lot of work for the Vector Control's 14 units. And Milwaukee has a number of laws to control animal problems. Leash laws, for one, which, by the way, also apply to cats.
There are a whole host of ordinances that cover what kind of animals you can have in the city and the kind of animals that you can't have in the city. We also inspect things like pet shops, grooming establishments, kennels, and we also have a system called an animal fancier permit, which also restricts the number of dogs or cats that someone can have in the city of Milwaukee.